Hi, today we are going to see about the newborn resuscitation or neonatal resuscitation. So we will be discussing about the resuscitation, assessment of the fetus at birth, identification of the baby's recurring resuscitation, initial steps of resuscitation, pulmonary resuscitation, vascular resuscitation and termination of resuscitation. These are the points we are going to discuss today. Neonatal resuscitation means it's a series of actions used to assist newborn babies who have difficulty with making the physiological transition from the intrauterine to extrauterine life. See, we know that the fetal circulation is totally different from the adult circulation. So, when the transition is occurring from the fetal circulation to the external, a lot of changes are occurring in the baby's body, and the baby's body is supposed to cope with that. In case if any of this mechanism fails or if it becomes delay, the baby may struggle for the respiration and the baby may get the hypoxia. In that case, we are supposed to give the oxygen artificially to the baby. Most of the newborns are vigorous at birth because when they are coming out of the uterus, they are coming out of that comfort zone. So they will be crying. So naturally, they will start to respirate. But 10% of the neonates may require some assistance at the birth to begin the breathing. That is, sometimes after the delivery, we may need to tap at the back or we may need to stimulate the baby. So just with that stimulation, this 10% will start to cry or start to breathe. Balance 1% may require extensive resuscitation. So even after tapping or after giving the initial stimulation also, they may not start to respirate. For those babies, we are supposed to give the resuscitation. The resuscitation equipments include general equipments we can see first. It includes a resuscitation bed. We need to have a bed for the baby, overhead warmer, towel, stethoscope, pulse oximeter. All those things are the things we need to have in the setting. And for the airway management, we need to have a suction device with suction catheter, bulb syringe, laryngoscope with a blade. The size is 0 and 0. And endotracheal tube size 2.5, 3 or 3.5, that you can decide according to the weight of the baby. And endotracheal carbon dioxide detector and laryngeal mask airway size 1. And for the breathing support, we need to have face mask, positive pressure ventilation devices, oxygen, and feeding tube. For the circulatory support, we need to have UVC kit, that is umbilical vein catheter kit, IV kit, IO needle, intraosseous needle. So in case if you are giving blood, any of these measures, either we are supposed to start the line through the umbilical cord, or we have to start the line through the normal IV line, or maybe giving an intraosseous. So we need to have the things for starting this line. And drugs or fluid, adrenaline 1 is to 10,000, that is 0.5 milligram per ml, normal saline, and blood. In case if the baby is having circulatory failure, blood also should be arranged. So these are the equipments we need to have for the resuscitation of the baby. And next we can see the assessment of the newborn at birth. First one, immediately after the delivery of the baby, we have seen in the fourth stage, we are supposed to clamp the cord. If the baby is compromised, so if the baby is struggling for the respiration, the optimal time for cord clamping remains unknown. There is no fixed time because first priority should be for resuscitating the baby. The more severely compromised the newborn, the more likely it is that resuscitation measures need to take priority over delayed cord clamping. So in that case, more than the clamping of the cord, the resuscitation of the baby will be having prime importance, because we know that if the brain cells are not getting oxygen for a few minutes, 4 minutes also, the brain cell death will occur and it will affect the entire baby. So we should resuscitate the baby. That should be the first priority. And in the initial assessment, we have to take the APGAR score at the first minute and at the fifth minute also. And in the first minute, you will get a clear picture about the acidosis and survival. And on the fifth minute, you will get, actually you are assessing it for the neurological outcome also. And each variable should be evaluated at the first and fifth minute. Now we can see about the APGAR score. It is given by the Virginia APGAR, and it includes the parameters like respiration, reflexes, pulse, skin color and muscle tone. So respiration, we can see whether the baby is crying. Reflexes, whether the baby is irritable or proper reflexes are there. You should see pulse rate and heart rate, skin color of the body and color of the extremities, and muscle tone of the baby. These are the parameters you are assessing in the ABGA score, and this is given by the Virginia ABGA. And in the ABGA score, already I have told you that the parameters we are assessing include color, that is appearance, that is why we got this ABGAR: appearance, pulse, grimace, activity, and respiratory effort. The short form is ABGAR. So appearance means we have to see the color of the baby. If the baby is blue or pale, the score is 0. If the baby is pink, and if the extremities are blue, the score is 1. And if the baby is completely pink, that is a normal. In that case, you can give 2 marks or score 2. And for the heart rate, if it is absent, the score is 0. And if it is less than 100 per minute, the score is 1. And if it is more than 100 per minute, you can give score 2. And next is grimace or reflex irritability. If it is absent, the score is 0. And if grimace is there, means the score is 1. And if the baby is coughing or sneezing, the score is 2. And muscle tone, that is activity. If no activity is there, if tone is very poor, and if the baby is not maintaining that flexion, the score is 0. And if some flexion of extremity is there, means the score is 1. And if active movement, and if the hands are flexed towards the body and the legs are flexed towards the abdomen, the score is 2. And the respiratory effort, if it is not there, the score is 0. That is, if it is absent, the score is 0. And if slow respiratory effort is there, means you can give 1. And if good respiratory effort is there, and if the baby is crying, the score can be 2. And when you are taking these parameters, if you are getting a score between 8 to 10, that is normally 90% of the babies will be having score between 8 to 10. So in that case, no need to give any extra effort for starting the respiration. You can just do the nasal and oral sectioning. You can dry the skin of the baby, and you can give more normal body temperature. You can take measures for maintaining the body temperature. That will be sufficient. But if the score is between 5 to 7, it shows that baby got mild asphyxia just before the birth, and the baby may, in case that way, if the baby is responding to the vigorous stimulation, oxygen blown over the face, that is, if you're just blowing oxygen over the face, that will stimulate the baby, that itself will be enough. And if the ABGA score is between 3 to 4, it shows that the neonate was moderately depressed at birth, and usually the baby will be cyanotic and will be having poor respiratory effort. And in that case, usually the baby will respond to the bag mask ventilation, or if you are giving breath, the baby will become pink. And if the ABGA score is between 0 to 2, that is, if it is less than 2, it shows that the baby neonate was severely asphyxiated, and that baby require immediate resuscitation. And usually we are doing the resuscitation effort for those babies. And the babies need immediate resuscitation includes the newborn. When you're assessing the newborn rapidly, if you have to see whether the baby is at term, whether the baby is a preterm baby or a term baby, and you should see whether the baby is crying or not, and you should see the muscle tone of the baby. And if your answer is yes for these 3 questions, that is, if the baby is crying, and if the baby is a term baby, and if the muscle tone is good, that baby doesn't need anything. You can just allow the baby to be with the mother. And if the answer is no for any of this question, that baby need additional care, or one or more of the following steps that baby needs. That is, sometimes the baby may need initial step of stabilization, sometimes that baby may need ventilation, sometimes chest compression, sometimes administration of epinephrine, or sometimes administration of volume expansion. That is, sometimes you may be supposed to give the blood also. The 60 seconds, the first 60 seconds are golden minutes. So in that case, after that, you have to reevaluate, and you have to see whether ventilation is required or not. The decision to progress beyond initial steps is determined by simultaneous assessment of respiration, that is you have to assess whether the baby is having apnea or whether the baby is having gasping or labored or unlabored breathing. So pattern of respiration you should see, and if it is okay, if it is normal, no need to go for any extra measures. And you should see the heart rate, if it is, whether you should see whether it is less than 100 or more than 100 per minute. And the heart rate should be assessed intermittently according to the precordial pulse. And if the pulse is not detectable, you can see the umbilical pulse palpation, and that will give you an approximate, that will give you correct estimate about the pulse rate of the baby. If respiration and pulse is not good, in that case immediately you just attach the baby to a pulse oximeter, so you will get an idea about the perfusion, that is carbon dioxide and oxygen saturation level. You will get an idea about that. And for attaching this actually you should not take extra time. Even during that also you should take the measures for resuscitating the baby without any interruption. And you should see the positive pressure. Once if the positive pressure ventilation or supplementary oxygenation are started, assessment should do again. That is, again you should see the heart rate, respiration and the state of oxygenation. And the most sensitive indicator of a successful response is increase in the heart rate. That is, once after starting the resuscitation you should do the assessment again, and if the heart rate is increasing, it shows that it is successful. See, during the labor process, when you are waiting for receiving the baby, always you should anticipate the unexpected moments. You should anticipate sometimes the baby may cry or baby may not cry. So that you should expect, or that you'll be anticipating, and adequate preparation should be there, and you have to evaluate the baby accurately, and prompt initiation of support are critical for the successful neonatal resuscitation. So always you have to be prepared, and you have to be ready for the resuscitation of the baby. And at every delivery we need to have a separate person for receiving the baby, and that person should assess and it is the responsibility of that person to do the initial assessment of the baby, and that person should be capable of doing the initial resuscitation, including the administration of positive pressure ventilation devices and chest compressions if it is needed. So you need to have a separate person for receiving the baby and for the care of the baby. And someone else promptly available have the skills to perform a complete resuscitation. That is, in case if you are expecting unexpected things, you need to have another person for doing the complete resuscitation. That is, that person need to have the skill for putting the endotracheal tube and for the administration of medication. That is, in case if you want to start an umbilical venous catheter, so those things should be familiar for that person. And majority of the newborns, they may not need any type of resuscitation, just with the stimulation, or immediately without stimulation also they will cry. But in case if the baby is a preterm baby, you have to expect special things. In that case, all these things should be ready. That is, you need to have an additional person, and one more person should be there, and that person need to have the skill for starting the resuscitation, and even that person need the skill for putting the ET tube also. And problems with the preterm babies include they are having immature lung, and they are having, it is difficult to ventilate, and in case if you are starting the positive pressure ventilation also, there is a chance for getting injury because of the immature lung. And their blood vessels are also immature, that is, it is not developed, so there is a chance for getting hemorrhage, brain damage, cerebral hemorrhage chance is there. And the skin is also large, body surface area is there, so chance of heat loss is also more for the baby, and these babies are having more chance for infection also. And same time these babies will be having risk for hypovolemic shock due to the decreased blood volume. So these are the risk for the preterm babies. Immediately after receiving the baby, you should take measures for giving warmth for the baby. So for that you can keep the baby under the radiant warmer, especially if the baby is a preterm baby. Otherwise also we are supposed to give warmth for the baby. And next one is positioning. You can keep the baby in a sniffing position to open the airway. And another one is clearing the airway. For that you can put the suction. You can suck the mouth and nose of the baby either by using a bulb syringe or by using a suction catheter. You can suck the baby, and you can dry the baby, and all these things actually when you're drying, when you're sucking, it will stimulate the respiration naturally. And if the baby cried, keep the baby near to the mother for getting skin to skin contact, and cover the baby with dry linen to maintain the temperature. And observe the baby for the breathing, activity and color. So continuously, even after 5 minutes also, and again after continuously you have to observe the baby for these parameters. And next one is temperature control. In the case of very low birth weight babies, that is if the weight of the baby is less than 1.5 kg, that is in the case of preterm babies also, they are having more risk for the hypothermia, even if you are using the traditional techniques, that is if you are keeping the baby near to the mother, or if you are covering the baby, all those things, if you are doing also, there is a chance for getting the hypothermia. So in that case, we are supposed to do the additional warming techniques. That is, we have to do the pre-warming of the labor room at 26 degrees centigrade, and you have to cover the baby with the plastic wrapping. That is food or medical grade heat resistant plastic you are supposed to use. Otherwise, you can use the exothermic blanket, or you can keep the baby under the radiant warmer. You can do any of this. And next is clearing the airway. When the amniotic fluid is clear, only the thing you can just do the suctioning. You can do the nasopharynx. If bradycardia is there, means you have to suck the nasopharynx also. And tracheal intubation in babies with the NICU, that is in the case of babies, so those who are having complaints, or those who are having decreased oxygenation, or those who are having decreased central blood flow, that should be done. When you're performing the suctioning and when you're removing the secretions, it will decrease the respiratory resistance. And suctioning immediately following the birth should be reserved for babies who are having obvious secretions to spontaneous breathing, and those who require positive pressure ventilation, that is nasopharyngeal suctioning. The normal suctioning by using bulb syringe, that is suctioning clearing the mouth and nose, that should be done for all the babies. And if the meconium aspiration is there, that is the baby may get the meconium aspiration syndrome, there is a chance for developing mass. So in that case, tracheal suctioning has not been associated with reduction in the incidence of mass or mortality of these infants. Even if you are doing the suctioning also, there is a chance for getting the meconium aspiration syndrome. Sometimes the pea soup particulate meconium can be there in the lungs, that we may be able to remove from the lungs. So before breathing is getting established, in that case actually you should remove these meconium contents from the lungs for the survival of the baby in the case of meconium aspiration. So if it is a thin watery meconium, it will not produce, that is it needs only the suctioning. Otherwise, if this pea soup particulate is there, in that case you can do the chest physiotherapy and postural drainage every 30 minutes for 2 hours, and after that again hourly for 6 hours. This will remove the residual meconium from the lungs, and after that you can perform the suctioning also. That is, you have to do the chest physiotherapy and the postural drainage. All newborns after meconium aspiration should be observed for 24 hours because they can develop the persistent fetal circulation syndrome. So they have to be under complete observation, those who are having the meconium aspiration. Next, we can see about the pulmonary resuscitation. You should see the assessment of, you should see the demand or need for oxygenation. So for that you can see the partial pressure of oxygen. Even for the normal babies also, for the first 10 minutes the oxygen saturation level may not be normal. So usually it will be between 70 to 80% for few minutes after the birth. It is due to that initial cyanosis and the initial respiratory effort problems. And actually you should maintain the oxygen saturation in the optimal level. If it is high also it is harmful, if it is low also it is harmful for the baby. And even when you are giving oxygen also, some of the studies are telling that if you are giving 100% oxygen, it is showing decreased rate of survival. Instead of that, if you are mixing it with air, instead of giving 100% oxygen, if you are mixing it with normal air, it shows the better survival of the baby. And Eskring and al. Found that in preterm babies, the resuscitation with the blend of oxygen and air, that is if you are mixing oxygen and air, that result in less hypoxemia and hyperoxemia than instead of giving 100% oxygen titration. So it is better to, that is the studies are telling that it is better to give air mixed with oxygen instead of giving 100% oxygen. It stimulates the lung more effectively. If the babies are having bradycardia, that is if the heart rate is less than 60 per minute after 90 seconds of resuscitation and with a lower concentration of oxygen, in that case the oxygen concentration we are supposed to increase up to 100% until the recovery of the normal heart rate. And next, positive pressure ventilation. If the newborn is apneic or if gasping is there or if the heart rate is less than 100 per minute, after the initial steps of resuscitation, after the initial step of stimulation, you can start the positive pressure ventilation. Initial births and assisted ventilation, initial inflations following the birth, either spontaneous or assisted, create the functional residual volume. The primary measure of adequate initial ventilation is prompt improvement of heart rate. After doing these measures, if you have seen sudden improvement in the heart rate, it shows a success. And otherwise, you can see for the chest wall movement and increase in the heart rate. Both things also you can assess. An initial peak inflation pressure of 20 centimeter of water is effective. That is when you are inflating by using the, that is I have told you about the positive pressure ventilation, that is you have to give the artificial, that is bag mask ventilation you can use. So when you are inflating, the pressure can be initially 20 centimeter of water, but 30 to 40 centimeter water may be required in some 10 babies. And if the pressure is not being monitored, the minimum initial required to achieve increase in heart rate should be used. So in case if you are not able to monitor the pressure, you should see the heart rate and you should use the minimum pressure that is increasing the heart rate. And assisted ventilation, that is 40 to 60 breaths per minute to promptly achieve the heart rate up to more than 100 per minute. That is you have to give 40 to 60 breaths per minute. And CPAP, it is recommended in preterm newborn who are breathing spontaneously but with difficulty. Starting the infants on CPAP decrease the rate of intubation and mechanical ventilation and decrease the surfactant use and duration of ventilation, but it increase the rate of pneumothorax. Although PEEP is beneficial and used routinely during the mechanical ventilation of neonates in NICU, there have been no studies especially examining PEEP versus no PEEP when positive pressure ventilation is used during the establishment of the functional residual volume following birth. The PEEP is likely to be beneficial and should be used if suitable equipment is available. The laryngeal mask airways we can use for ventilating the newborns those who are having more than 2 kg and those who are born after 34 weeks of gestation. And in case if the weight of the baby is less than 2 kg and if they born before 34 weeks, that is in the case of small preterm babies, we are not using it commonly. And LMA should be considered if face mask ventilation is unsuccessful and tracheal intubation is unsuccessful or not feasible. That is, first we should go for the bag and mask ventilation, and if it failed only, we are supposed to go for the laryngeal mask airway. Next, endotracheal tube placement, that is intubation. The indications for the endotracheal intubation includes initial endotracheal suctioning of newborn vigorous meconium strain newborns, and if bag mask ventilation is ineffective or if it is getting prolonged, and if the newborns born without detectable heart rate, and if expected need of continued or prolonged ventilation is there, and for the special resuscitation circumstances such as congenital diaphragmatic hernia and very low birth weight babies. In these cases, you can go for the endotracheal placement, because if you are giving a bag and mask ventilation, you cannot give it for a long period. In that cases, you can think about the, if it is needed for a prolonged period, you can think about the replacement by the ET tube. When you are selecting the endotracheal tube, you should select the appropriate site, and when you are inserting it, it should go 1 to 2 centimeter below the vocal cord. And the distance from the tip of the tube to the gum is 7, 8, 9 and 10 in the case of 1, 2, 3 and 4 kilogram weight babies. That is, in the case of 1 kg weight 7 and in the case of 2 kg 8. In that way you are supposed to insert it. A small gas leak should be present between the endotracheal tube and trachea. when ventilation pressure is 15 to 25 centimeter of water. And the approximate size of the endotracheal tube also depends on the weight of the baby. If the weight of the baby is up to 1.5 kilogram, you can use 2.5 millimeter tube. And if the weight is between 1.5 to 2.5, you can use 3 millimeter tube. And if the weight is more than 2.5 kilogram, you can use the 3.5 millimeter tube. That is the size of the endotracheal tube you can use for the neonates. And prompt heart rate is the best indicator that the endotracheal tube and is providing effective ventilation. You can see the heart rate, and if it is increasing, it shows that the tube is giving effective ventilation. And exhaled carbon dioxide detection is the recommended method of confirmation of the placement of the endotracheal tube. And poor or absent pulmonary blood flow may give false negative result. That is, if the pulmonary blood flow is not there, effective blood flow is not there, in that case, you may not get a proper exhaled carbon dioxide and you may not get the proper oxygenation saturation also. Other clinical indicators for the correct placement of the endotracheal tube include condensation or mist in the endotracheal tube, chest movements of the baby, presence of equal breath sounds on both sides, and improvements in skin color and the oxygen saturation. So if all these things are there, means you can make sure that the endotracheal tube has placed properly and it is ventilating effectively. Because the chest is small, the breath sounds are well transmitted within the thorax. A difference in breath sounds between the two sides of chest should raise suspicion of pneumothorax, atelectasis, and congenital anomaly of the lung. When you are auscultating the breath sound, when you are hearing the breath sound, if difference is there on both sides of the chest, it may be due to the pneumothorax, or you can suspect the atelectasis, or you can suspect the congenital anomalies of the lung. And presence of loud breath sounds over the stomach. That is, if you are hearing the breath sound over the stomach, it may be due to the tracheoesophageal fistula. Failure to adequately ventilate the lungs at birth may make hypoxemia worse and lead to CNS damage and even death of the baby. That is, in case if you are not able to start the respiration or if you are not able to oxygenate the baby, that leads to the hypoxemia to the brain, and that may produce even death of the baby. But when you are giving the oxygenation also, you have to be careful. If the partial pressure of oxygen is 150 millimeter of mercury for 2 to 4 hours, that is, if it is high for 2 to 4 hours, that will produce retinopathy in the premature babies. So when you are giving the oxygenation, it should be, the saturation should be in the optimal level. It should not increase and it should not reduce. So already we have seen the important aspects about the bag and mask ventilation, positive pressure ventilation, endotracheal tube intubation, everything. If the baby's lung is immature, if the baby is a preterm baby, you can administer the surfactant also. You can administer it as liquid. You can use the Savanta at 4 ml per kilogram or Curosaf at 2.5 ml per kilogram into the trachea at birth. So this will ensure the lung maturity in the case of premature babies. Next, we can see about the vascular resuscitation. If the blood volume is low, even if you are resuscitating the baby also, if the blood volume is poor, the perfusion or saturation may not attain, even if the ET tube is placed properly, if you are giving proper oxygenation. In that case also, sometimes if the baby is not having regaining that pink color, or if the baby is not maintaining the circulation effectively, it may be due to the failure of circulation, or it may be due to low blood volume also. See, after giving oxygen for 30 seconds, that is after giving positive pressure ventilation for 30 seconds also, if the baby is not regaining the heart rate, that is if the heart rate is less than 60, in that case you can go for the cardiac massage. So when you are giving the chest compression, first you have to give importance to the ventilation, then only you are going for the circulation, because oxygenation is the prime importance. And compression should be delivered on the lower third of the sternum to a depth of 1/3 of the anterior posterior diameter of the chest. You can use the technique you can use is the compression with the two thumbs, with the fingers encircling the chest and supporting the back, or you can give compression with the two fingers, that is middle and index finger also you can use of one hand. these two methods you can use for giving the compressions. See, here they have placed both thumbs at the chest of the baby and the balanced fingers are encircling the chest of the baby, and by using the two thumbs they are applying pressure. That is one way. Otherwise, as like this picture, you can keep two fingers, that is middle and index finger, over the chest, and by using those two fingers also you can perform the chest compressions. And that when you are compressing, just should go down 1/3 of the total volume of the chest cavity, so that much it should go down. And actually studies are telling that this two thumb method is effective or better when comparing with the two finger method. You can use any of these two. A compression and ventilation should be coordinated to avoid simultaneous delivery. The chest should be permitted to re-expand fully during relaxation, and the rescuer thumb should not leave the chest. See, after giving one compression, you should give gap for the relaxation of the chest. But at the same time, you are not supposed to take the hands out of the chest. By leaving the hands over there itself, you can give. And the compression ventilation ratio is 3:1. That is 90 compressions and 30 breaths. So in a minute, you can give up to 120 compressions. Thus, each event will be allotted 1/2 seconds with the exhalation occurring during the first compression after each ventilation. A 3:1 compression to ventilation ratio is used where ventilation compromise is the primary cause. But rescuer should consider using higher ratios if the arrest is believed to be of cardiac origin. Usually we are using the 3:1 combination for the children. Respirations, heart rate and oxygenation should be assessed periodically, and it should be coordinated with the compressions and ventilation, and you should see the heart rate is more than 60 per minute. If the heart rate is coming more than 60 per minute, you can even stop the compressions. Avoid frequent interruptions of compressions. That is, once if you have started, you should not interrupt the compressions. For assessing the heart rate and for performing the other assessments, you can have another person. If the neonate's condition does not improve rapidly with ventilation and tactile stimulation, an umbilical artery catheter should be inserted. Most preterm neonates weighing 1,250 grams at birth, and 1 to 3% of the term neonates require umbilical artery catheter during the resuscitation. Umbilical venous catheterization, most rapidly accessible intravascular route to administer the drug like adrenaline, or for giving the fluid in order to expand the blood volume, or to measure the blood gas, that is arterial pH, and even for the blood pressure also, and provide continued vascular access until the alternative route is getting established. In some cases, even after giving positive pressure ventilation or even after giving cardiac massage and ventilation also, the heart rate may not come to the normal. In that case, it may be due to the immaturity of the lungs, or maybe due to the less surfactant, or maybe due to the less blood volume. So in that case, you can give even after giving compressions and ventilation also, and even after giving 100% oxygenation also, if the heart rate is less than 60 per minute, you can give adrenaline or you can give volume expanders. And usually you can use the IV route, and the recommended dose is 0.01 to 0.03 milligram per kilogram, and rapid bolus followed by 1 ml of 0.9 normal saline flush. And intratracheal dose is higher, that is, in that case you can use, if you are using intratracheal route, 0.05 to 0.1 milligram per kilogram, that is 1:10,000. 0.1 milligram per ml may be considered, while IV access is to be obtained, followed by the positive pressure ventilation. First, in case if you are not able to access the IV line, you can give intratracheal also. Later you should access the IV line and you should start to give by the IV, and it can be repeated every 5 minutes if the heart rate remains less than 60. And the volume expanders, that is, first you should detect the hypovolemia, you should take the arterial blood pressure, and you should do the physical examination, that is, you should see whether the baby is pale, or whether the baby is having poor capillary refill or poor skin perfusion. You should see whether the extremities are cold, and radial pulses and posterior tibial pulses are weak or absent, And if the temperature is less in the extremity, in that case you can suspect the hypovolemia. Central venous pressure measurements are helpful in detecting the hypovolemia and in determining the adequacy of fluid replacement. See, for identifying the hypovolemia, you have to monitor the CVP. And the normal CVP in neonates is 2 to 8 centimeter of water. And if the CVP is less than 2, you can suspect the hypovolemia. And in case if you are suspecting the hypovolemia, you have to, in case if you have confirmed the hypovolemia, how to treat the hypovolemia. For that you can use blood or you can use the crystalloids. And if you are suspecting the hypovolemia at birth, you can arrange for the blood also. Crystalloids and blood should be titrated in 10 ml per kilogram and given slowly over 10 minutes. At times, more than 50% of the blood volume, that is 85 ml per kilogram in term and 100 ml per kilogram in preterm must be replaced. That is, we may be supposed to replace more than 50% of the total blood volume, especially if placental separation was there before the delivery. In that case, you may be supposed to give more blood. That is, 80 more than 50% means in the case of term babies, it is approximately 85 ml per kg, and in the case of preterm babies, it is 100 ml per kg. And in most cases, 10 to 20 ml per kg of volume restores the mean arterial pressure to the normal. And care should be taken to avoid giving volume expanders rapidly, because rapid infusions of large volume has been associated with the hypertension and intravascular hypertension also. Hypertension may disrupt the intratracheal vessels and can cause intracranial hemorrhage, and if cerebrovascular autoregulation is absent. And post resuscitation care, so after this resuscitation you can start drugs, or you can start volume expanders, you can start PPV, or you can give bag mask ventilation, or you can start the chest compressions. If after giving all those things, once if the baby has recovered, baby who require resuscitation are at risk of deterioration after their vital signs are coming back to normal. That is, even if they are coming back to normal also, their condition may get worsened at any time. Once adequate ventilation and circulation has been established, the infant should be maintained or transferred to an environment where close monitoring and anticipatory care can be provided. So even after the recovery also, you have to monitor these babies continuously, because at any time they may go back to at any time there is a chance of failure of circulation and failure of respiration. So you have to monitor these babies for the oxygen saturation, heart rate and ECG, respiratory rate and pattern, blood glucose level, blood gas level, fluid balance and nutrition, blood pressure, temperature, and for the neurological assessment. All these things you should do for these babies continuously. And for the glucose level, if the newborns with lower blood glucose levels, they are at higher risk of getting brain injury. So maintain the blood glucose level equivalent to 2.5 millimole per liter. So the blood glucose level also should be maintained for the babies. If the blood glucose concentration is low, you can give bolus glucose 0.5 to 1 milligram per kilogram of 10% dextrose you can give to the baby, and a constant infusion of 5 to 7 milligram per kilogram per minute intravenously is given for such babies. Next, we can see the guidelines for withholding or discontinuing the resuscitation. In some cases, we may not resuscitate the baby. Actually, it is painful, but it can be decided on the basis of the experience of physician and the desires of the parents. But when you are making the decision, the physician must consider the probability of neurological damage and chances of a productive, useful life are poor. Consideration should be given to discontinuing all the resistive effort. That is, in case if you are expecting that the baby will be a neurological failure, or if the chance for recovery is very less, and even if recovering also, if the baby is having severe problem, on the basis of the experience of the doctor and by considering the desires, likes and dislikes of the parents, you can think about the discontinuation of stoppage of resuscitation. and withholding the resuscitation, it may be considered reasonable when there have been conditions with poor outcome, that is decreased gestation, birth weight or congenital anomalies are associated with almost certain or early death, or unacceptably high morbidity is likely among the rare survival is there, and opportunity for parental agreement also should be there. That is, if the chance for survival is very rare, or if high morbidity rate will be there, in that case only we are supposed to think about the withholding of resuscitation or stoppage of resuscitation. And in that case, the doctors or medical team should not take a decision by themselves. They have to discuss with the parents also. So in this video, we have seen the different measures for resuscitating the baby. We have seen the APGAR score. We have seen how to assess the baby for the circulation, for the respiration, and for the saturation. So thank you for watching this video. If you felt that this was useful for the students, please subscribe and share this video. Thank you.